Hi everyone. I'm Bubbles from Susan's family. Today I'll teach you how to make a Secret Garden series Loki Yoke sweater. For this electronic tutorial, you can search for susud.com on the website and check it out. This sweater is divided into several parts, shoulder parts, front and back differences, body, hems, sleeves and collar. First, knit the parts from the shoulder parts downward to the bottom. After completing these sections, pick up strands to knit the collar. First, let's learn to crochet the shoulder parts. Cast on using the provisional chain cast on method. After completing, take another yarn to crochet. Let's take a look at the chart below. In this chart, all stitches are represented in a grid format. One square in the chart represents one stitch, which corresponds to one loop when crocheting. And you need to increase stitches evenly for the shoulder parts. The methods of increasing stitches used here are right lifted increase, RLI, and left lifted increase, LLI, and both take up 2 spaces. In the chart, these blank areas mean no stitches, indicating that no crocheting is needed there. When crocheting, switch colors back and forth to create the intarsia pattern. In the diagram, different colored squares distinguish the corresponding colors. For each round, just follow the stitch techniques shown in the diagram. When counting the number of stitches per row here, just count the number of squares. Then match them with the loops on the straight needle. The numbers on the side of the chart indicate the round number. When working in rounds, always read the chart from right to left. Later, when you encounter back and forth rows, for the right side, read the chart from right to left. For the wrong side, read it from left to right. Mindful that when working on the wrong side, you need to knit the opposite stitches of the chart. That's the basic introduction to the chart. First, let's cast on and work the first round. Now, please watch my demonstration. First, take any yarn that is a different color from the yarn used in the first round of the chart to cast on. Make a slip knot with the yarn. Place it onto the straight needle. This is the first stitch. Hold another straight needle with your right hand. Start casting on. The loop on the left needle is the second stitch. Then cast on the third stitch. Fourth stitch. The loops can be a little loose here, or it will be difficult to pick up stitches later. Continue casting on in this way. 5 stitches. 6 stitches. 'You can see, after casting on the corresponding number of stitches, there is still one loop on the right needle. Leave about 10 centimeters of yarn tail, and break the yarn. Stretch the loop on the right needle. Pass the yarn tail through the loop. Pull tight. Tie a knot underneath the yarn as a marker. That's how you complete the casting on. In practice, there will be more stitches. Pay attention to prevent the loops from falling off on both sides. Next, start working on the first round. Switch the needle with the beginning stitches to your left hand. Note that the marked yarn tail should be on the right side. Take the corresponding yarn. Here, I'm choosing the color randomly. Make a slip knit and set it aside for later use. Pick up a straight needle with your right hand and start knitting. Since we're working in rounds, the pattern chart is always read from right to left. The symbol for the first round being all blank squares means to knit all stitches. Insert the right needle downwards into the first loop from above. Place the slip knit loop onto the needle. Slightly tighten the yarn tail. Hang the yarn on your right hand, then pick it up and pull it through. Release the loop from the left needle. This is the first stitch. Continue to knit the next stitches. You can see there's a braid-like texture forming below. Continue knitting downwards until you've completed about 1/3 of the total stitches. Now, the required number of stitches is done. Move the loops to the middle. Then take out another needle. And continue knitting the knit stitches. Knit approximately 1/3 of the stitches again. After completing, take out the last needle. Finish the remaining stitches. After completing, you will notice that the loops on the needles are roughly evenly divided among the 3 needles. This completes the first round. This round is done using 1 yarn, which we can call the solid color round. Now, start the second round. Arrange the needles into a triangle shape. Pay attention not to twist at the bottom. Start crocheting from the position of the yarn tail. Take out the 4th straight needle. Insert the right needle into the first loop. Knit 1 knit stitch. This is the boundary between 2 needles. Tighten the yarn tail. Otherwise, the finished product won't look nice. That's the first stitch. Continue knitting the stitches until you finish all the loops on this straight needle. After completing, you'll reach the boundary. Continue with knit stitches. Pay attention to the junction of the needles. The first stitch needs to be tightened. Keep crocheting downward until you finish all loops on the needle to the right of the yarn tail. Please take a look. We've now reached the position of the yarn tail. The second round is complete. If the yarn tail here is a bit loose, you can pull it tight. If you cannot tell where the very first stitch is, you can refer to the position of the starting tail. Above the yarn tail here, the corresponding stitch is the start of each round. After finishing the second round, move on to the third round. For this round, you need to switch colors for the intarsia pattern, and you also need to switch colors for increasing stitches. Let me demonstrate the technique. In reality, every round of the intarsia pattern uses two colors alternately. For convenience in crocheting, we will use both hands to carry the yarns. We'll call the original yarn as color 1. The other yarn will be called as color 2. Take out color 2 and leave about 10 centimeters. Tie a knot on color 1. Pull tight. Then move this knot down to the base of color 1. Note that the knot for joining the yarn should be on the wrong side of the fabric, not shown on the right side. Whenever you need to join yarn in the back, you can follow this same method. Referring to the chart, there are more stitches in color 1, so it goes on the right hand. Hold color 2 with the left hand. Wrap color 2 once around the left little finger. Pass it through between the middle finger and index finger. Place this thread above the index finger, and have the remaining fingers of the left hand hold the left knitting needle. Use the fourth knitting needle to knit. Start with 1 RLI. The two squares corresponding to the RLI here are in different colors. First, knit the first square with the corresponding color. Pick up the strand with the right needle. Knit 1 stitch with color 2. Then pick up that stitch and knit 1 stitch with color 1. The RLI is now complete. We can see 2 loops of different colors are created within one braid. When you encounter RLI behind, just follow this method and crochet with the corresponding color yarn when using different colors. Next, knit 4 more stitches with color 1. Then knit 1 stitch with color 2. Knit another stitch with color 1. Now it's time for the RLI again. This stitch consists of 2 identical squares, meaning knit with the same color. Another RLI is now complete. Continue knitting 1 stitch with color 1 and 1 stitch with color 2. Then knit the corresponding number of color 1. After knitting a few stitches, be sure to gently stretch the fabric, to avoid pulling the yarn too tight, or leaving it too loose, which can cause the fabric piece to become uneven. Continue referring to the pattern to finish this round. After finishing the last stitch with color 1, the third round is complete. The loops on the straight needle in different colors correspond to the differently colored squares of the third round on the chart. Now proceed to knit the fourth round. This round also requires increasing stitches. Refer to the diagram and complete the preceding stitches first. Pay attention to switching colors while knitting. After completing, you'll reach the position for the LLI. Start with 1 knit stitch using color 2. Then with color 1, pick the second braid from the left side, below the right straight needle, and knit 1 stitch. This adds 1 stitch. 1 LLI is now completed. When you encounter a LLI in a different color later, follow the same method, and crochet with the corresponding color yarn. Continue referring to the pattern to finish this round. After completing it, the fourth round is done. Now please continue knitting while referring to the chart. For any round behind, if color 1 or color 2 is not in pattern temporarily, just leave it where it is. When you reach more than 5 stitches in the 7th round, you need to bring the other thread through the middle. I will demonstrate the technique. When the number of consecutive stitches in color 1 exceeds 5, as the distance between them is relatively long, bring color 2. Every THREE_FOUR stitches. I'll continue to demonstrate the method for bring color 2 using this small sample. Start by knitting 6 stitches with color 1. First, knit 2 to 3 stitches. When knitting the fourth stitch, bring the yarn forward. First, insert the needle into the loop. Place the tail of color 2 on the right side of the needle. Then continue wrapping the yarn and drawing through with your right hand to complete the stitch. You can take a look at the wrong side of the fabric piece. Color 2 has been brought to the corresponding position. Continue knitting the remaining stitches with color 1. Then knit 2 stitches with color 2. Continue knitting the corresponding number of stitches with color 1. Start by knitting 2 to 3 stitches. Then bring color 2 through. You can see that color 2 is now in the corresponding position. Continue knitting the rest of the stitches with color 1. After finishing, the 7th round is done. When each hand separately carries a yarn, normally these two threads won't tangle with each other. If during your crocheting, the yarns do cross, make sure to settle it promptly. Pay attention that after carrying the yarn, stretch the fabric piece a little in time in the crocheting process. If a color won't be used again for over 10 rounds, you can directly leave a 10 cm tail and cut the yarn. Later, just hide the yarn tails along the texture of the wrong side of the fabric. When you reach the joining position, continue with the same method as before, and keep crocheting by joining the yarn. This is the way to carry yarn. Please follow the chart to finish the remaining rounds for the shoulder parts. After actually crocheting a few rounds, if the length of one round exceeds the length of the straight needle, you can switch to a circular needle to continue. Take the circular needle and use one end to knit. Switching out all the straight needles one by one. When using circular needles to knit behind, you can use a stitch marker to mark between the first stitch and the last stitch. This is the method for crocheting intarsia in the shoulder parts section. Up to this point, the shoulder parts have been covered. Next, let's learn how to crochet the front-back difference. The front-to-back difference is achieved by crocheting in rows. Within the yoke area, on the wrong side, you need to crochet the opposite stitch pattern as shown in the chart. Now, please watch me demonstrate. Knit the first row. After completing the first row, place a stitch marker on the braid below the needle to mark it. Which is convenient for counting the number of rows before and after. When counting rows, pay attention and start counting from above the braid where the stitch marker is placed. Then work row 2. Remember, on the wrong side, you should crochet the opposite stitch pattern as shown in the chart. Here, all stitches are purl. After completing row 2, the row numbers behind are worked back and forth in rows. Please refer to the pattern and complete it. That concludes the explanation of the front-back difference. Next, learn the body part, which is crocheting in rounds on the back piece section of the yoke and the front piece. You need to increase stitches at the underarm position. The new stitch technique used here is M1BL. Now, please watch my demonstration. Start with the first round. Here, I'll continue demonstrating with this sample. I'm only showing the method. Everything else is not for reference. First, knit each stitch one by one on the back piece. After completing it, place the corresponding number of loops for the right sleeve on hold. Cut a long piece of yarn tail, thread the needle. Insert the sewing needle from right to left through the loop on the left needle. And slip the loop off. After finishing, tie the two yarn tails with a loose knot. The loops on hold are for the right sleeve. You can now remove the stitch marker here. Next, we will increase stitches. Here, make one backwards loop, M1BL, to increase stitches. Start by increasing the first stitch. Place your right index finger above the yarn. Turn it clockwise to create a crossing loop. Pull this loop upwards onto the right straight needle. Slightly tighten. This is the M1BL. Continue and add one more stitch. Place your index finger above the yarn. After wrapping the yarn, pull it upwards onto the right needle. The M1BL is now done. Continue to add the corresponding number of stitches. The number of stitches increased in the sample swatch is random. After finishing, on the middle right side, place a stitch marker on the loop of the M1BL. The sample is completed with increased stitches. Next, continue with the front piece. Work into each stitch one by one using knit stitches. After finishing the front piece section, similarly, Place the corresponding loops of the left sleeve on hold. Then add stitches using the M1BL method. Pay attention to make a mark. On the loop of the M1BL stitch at the middle, right? This completes the first round. Make a mark below the straight needle as well. For convenient counting of rounds later. Now, proceed with round 2. Move the stitch marker, that marks the starting position, to the right needle. Then knit each stitch one by one in sequence. When knitting at the M1BL position, pay attention not to pull the yarn too tight. Try to keep it looser while knitting. Don't keep the distance between the two straight needles too far apart, to prevent the carrying yarn in the middle from becoming too long. If you crochet such a long line segment, it's a normal phenomenon, and will not affect the crochet. At the stitch marker position, place the stitch marker in front. If a loop accidentally falls off the left needle during the crocheting process, you can take the short segment of yarn tail between these two needles, make a circle by winding it clockwise from the middle, and put this loop back onto the left needle. Now the loop is restored. Continue knitting them until they're done. After finishing, the second round is complete. Now please refer to the pattern and knit the remaining rounds of the body. This completes the body section. After the body is done, start knitting the hem. A horizontal line in the chart indicates a purl stitch. The stitch pattern here is 2x2 ribbing, which means a texture that alternates between 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches. Similarly, it's crocheting in rounds, and color changes are needed during the process. Bind off after completion. Now, please watch me demonstrate. Using this small sample. The sample has fewer rounds and stitches. The pattern is random. Only just to demonstrate the method. Start with the first round. First, knit 2 stitches with color 2. Then, knit 2 stitches with color 1. If color 1 was cut before, reattach color 1 here. Hang it on your left hand. Then purl 2 stitches with color 1. Place color 1 above the needle. Then knit 2 stitches with color 2. First, wrap color 1 around the straight needle from below. Then knit. After completing 1 round, gently stretch the fabric. Knit 1 more stitch. After completing, knit 2 purl stitches with color 1. Place the yarn above the needle. Complete the purl stitch. Continue knitting by alternating 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches. For the first stitch of each color change, stretch the fabric to prevent the fabric from curling. Follow this method. Continue knitting until you finish the rest of the piece. Pay attention when knitting the stitch. The yarn in your left hand must go back below to avoid increasing stitches. You can see. This is what the sample looks like after completing the first round. Place a stitch marker on any loop below the circular needle for convenience. It makes counting rounds easier later. Now, start knitting the second round. Start with 2 knit stitches. Then do 2 purl stitches. You can also follow the fabric's texture here. For the braid shape, knit the stitches. For the tile shape, just knit the purl stitches. Continue following the chart to finish this round. That completes the second round. Please refer to the diagram and finish the remaining rounds of the hem. After everything is done, we need to bind off. I'll demonstrate the method. Finally, bind off. Use the yarn tail of color 2 to bind off. Leave a little of color 1 and cut it off. Then tie a knot with the yarn tail along the texture on the wrong side and hide it well. You can weave in a few more stitches to secure it. Next, use the yarn tail of color 2 to crochet. According to the texture, start with 2 knit stitches. Then pick up the previous loop and cover the next one. And slip it off. Continue following the texture and do 1 purl stitch. Pick up the previous stitch and cover the next one. Then do 1 purl stitch. Pick up the previous stitch and cover the next one again. Continue crocheting according to the texture. Then start binding off. Continue to finish the bind off row. After finishing, pull up the loop. Leave a little yarn tail and cut it off. Thread the tail through the darning needle. Thread it through the first braid. Then pass it through the braid where the yarn tail is located. Gently tighten it slightly. Finally, hide the tail following the texture on the wrong side. That's how you finish binding off. For any subsequent bind-offs, use the color 2 yarn tail to bind off. Cut the color 1 yarn tail, and hide it along the texture of the wrong side. Lastly, learn how to do the sleeves. There are 2 sleeves. The method is similar. Both are divided into the sleeve body and the cuff. First, pick up stitches along the cuff position, and crochet in rounds for the sleeve body. Then knit the cuff. Decrease stitches in the first round. The following knitting method is the same as for the hem. Below are the methods for picking up stitches, and decreasing stitches for the first round of the right sleeve, as well as the method for picking up stitches, for the first round of the left sleeve, separately. Please watch the demonstration. Start with knitting the right sleeve. Here, I will continue to demonstrate using this small sample. Start with the first round. Return the previously held stitches to the straight needle. Insert from right to left through the loops. Distribute them roughly onto 2 needles. With the loops positioned in the middle. Then start picking up stitches from the M1BL point. Take the yarn. Swatch colors or random. Make a loose knot with the tail end. Hang it on the right hand. You can see there are rows of braids at the M1BL positions. There are 2 strands crossing like this below the braid. Take the third straight needle. Insert it into the 2 crossed strands corresponding to the left side of the stitch marker position. Rotate the fabric a bit. Pick out the knotted loop. Adjust the loop size slightly. This is the first stitch of the first round for the sleeve body. Then insert the straight needle into the 2 strands corresponding to the adjacent braid on the left. You can now remove the stitch marker. Yarn over and draw through. This is the second stitch. Continue picking up all the stitches from the M1BL positions on the left side. Now it's time to work the side seams for the front and back difference. You can see there are small braids like this along the edge. On the side, between the 2 stitches, there is a gap like this. Insert it into the hole in the gap. Pick up the corresponding number of stitches as evenly as possible. When picking up, pay attention. You also need to pick up 1-2 stitches at the corners. Ensure there are no large gaps at the corners. Then pick up the holes in the gaps along the side edges. After picking up all the holes on the sides, make sure to pick up 1 stitch at the final corner as well. Once done, check the stitch count. In this swatch, there are fewer rows for the front and back difference, so there are fewer stitches to pick up. Continue with the corresponding stitch pattern at the position where the yarn loops were left. Take the 4th straight needle and start knitting. In this swatch, the stitches are random. Actually, please follow the chart and keeps knitting. Until they are finished. Pay attention to tighten the yarn at the boundary of the needles. After finishing the loops at the hold stitch position, continue picking up M1BL points. When picking up the first stitch, make sure no small holes appear. You can pick up 1 additional thread from the side together. This completes the picking up of stitches for the sleeve body. The swatch has fewer picked up stitches. For the actual number of stitches to pick up, please refer to the chart. Next, you can adjust the position of the loops. Distribute them roughly evenly across 3 straight needles. Remember not to move the first and last stitch loops. Then on the third straight needle, place a stitch marker underneath. After knitting all the loops on this needle, it indicates the end of a full round. When counting rounds, start from above the stitch marker. This completes the first round. First, we'll learn how to knit 2 stitches together on the right side, which is also called K2 tog. While knitting, insert the right needle from left to right, passing through both of these loops. And knit 1 stitch. This completes the K2 tog. You can see that the left loop is above the right loop. The method for knitting the left sleeve is identical to the right sleeve. First, thread the held loops back onto the needle. Here, I've already done this in advance. Then take out the yarn tail and the third needle. At the M1BL position, start picking up stitches from the marked position by the stitch marker. When picking up the last stitch, pay attention to avoid creating a hole. You can pick up 1 extra strand to the left. Next, knit the loops on the needle with the corresponding stitch pattern. Then pick up the corresponding number of stitches evenly on the front and back differences. Pay attention to picking up stitches at the corners on both ends. Make sure there are no holes left. Finally, at the M1BL position, pick up the remaining stitches. After completing the picking up, adjust the loops so that they are roughly evenly distributed. When adjusting, keep the position of the first stitch and the last stitch unchanged. Place a stitch marker below the third needle as a mark. The knitting method for the rest is the same as for the right sleeve. Please refer to the pattern and knit them until they're done. This is the knitting method for the left sleeve. After completion, you can remove all the stitch markers. Finally, knit the collar. First, pick up stitches along the cast-on edge, then knit in rounds. The method is the same as for the cuffs and hem. After finishing, bind off. Here, you need to start by undoing the yarn at the cast-on edge. Pick up the corresponding loops. Here's a method for unraveling and picking up stitches along the provisional cast-on. You can learn this first, then follow the chart for knitting. Please watch the demonstration. Before knitting, you need to pick up stitches first. Here, I'll demonstrate using a sample swatch. Please follow the actual project in your hands for crocheting. You can watch me demonstrate first, then proceed with the operation. Turn the piece so that the wrong side is facing you. Find the yarn tail at the end of the cast-on, which is the yarn tail with a knot. Undo the knot here. Be careful while unraveling it. Insert the circular needle from the right side into the loop. Which is the loop of the first round of knitting. Then, unravel the cast-on loops. Go a little slower, to prevent the loops from slipping off. Continue inserting from the right side into the loop. And remove the adjustable loop. Pick up stitches. Undo the yarn. From the right side, the loops form this texture. Continue picking up stitches using this method. Don't forget the last loop. Flip the piece to the right side. This completes the process of picking up stitches. Remember to check the number of stitches. It should match the starting chain count. Up to this point, the collar section has been fully explained. The entire making process of this sweater has now been covered. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family. Supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thanks for watching. See you in the next episode.